What's up, everyone? Thanks for listening to the Whatcast. Fearsome creatures of the Lumberwoods.
I love it.
I love it.
My favorite thing.
Yeah, it's one of our favorites. And you may ask yourself why. Well, one is cryptids. They're like cryptids.
But they're also like Pokemon or Monster in My Pocket.
Dude, and that's something I kind of wanted to get into. I'm so glad that you said that. But even for cryptids, these guys are fucking weird. And three, the reason why I love these things is you nailed it. I have to say it's the way that they were presented. They come from the book, mainly Creatures of the Lumberwoods, which came out in, I think, 1910. But it's presented in this uniform catalog ahead of its time format that we all grew to love in later books of the same subjects, like UFO books. I don't know. I think you're onto something. And that's a question I have here for you. Why is it things that have, I don't know, maybe the word roster is so appealing to us, like Lord of the Rings, SCPs, in comic books and video games, when they go deep into stuff and it's more detailed, it's much more appealing. Is it just as simple as the more detail, the better?
I really don't know. I think it would depend on what it, like, for me, I used to love with like Monster in My Pockets, for instance. I thought that they were cool on their own, but when they would come with the card that would have the description of like the legend or you know what they were known for or whatever, like that was the shit that I loved.
Yeah, the catalog feeling, right?
Yeah. It gave it. I don't know. Like it made it more exciting to collect them because you're like reading about like Jenny Greenteeth and you're like, oh shit, Jenny Greenteeth sounds terrifying. I don't have a Jenny Greenteeth. I want Jenny Greenteeth now.
I guess like a perfect example for me is I hadn't watched Cabin in the Woods, and you were like, dude, stop what you're doing and go watch that. So I did.
Yeah, dude, love that movie.
And it was a good movie but it got really cool right at the end when all the monsters escaped and it became this catalog type group of monsters.
Yeah, it was like the SCP Foundation.
Yeah, and it instantly became super cool, like way cooler than the movie was before that happened. And I get that same feeling when it comes to the creatures of the Lumberwoods. But even within this batch of weirdos, there seems to be a few that break this fearsome critter mold, ones that moved on from fearsome critters and became legends in their own right. And one of them, the Hodag. You're familiar with the Hodag, right, Mike?
I would say passingly familiar with the Hodag. I've heard mention in dark corners of the world that the Hodag exists, but that's about all I know.
And here's a question I have for you. Did you hear about the Hodag before you heard about Creatures from the Lumberwoods?
That's tough. I don't know. I can't say for sure if I had heard of it before that or not.
I definitely have. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about the Hodag, because there's a couple, like I said, a couple of these creatures that stick out. I mean, the Jersey Devil is a critter from the Lumberwoods. So, I mean, he's like his own thing. He stands out separately. We all heard about the Jersey Devil before we heard about creatures.
We should really do another show about the Jersey Devil.
We should.
The one show that we did about them was not very well reviewed because of the guest that we had on. So I think that we should redo it in the style of modern day Whatcast.
I'm down. Let us know if you're interested, dear listeners. But I love this creature just by the way it looks. You've seen it, right?
I don't know. Have I?
Oh, okay.
Maybe I have. I honestly can't recall.
I'm going to send you a picture on your phone of a Hodag. And there's a supposed taxidermed one, so I'll send that to you as well. Now, I love this guy because physically he fits right in with the creatures from the Lumberwoods. It makes no sense. I can't link this animal to anything, even in its description. They have to use a combination of animals to get across what this thing looks like. And it's pretty universally agreed upon. You know, the modern depiction is what's been seen. And this depiction has stayed true since the beginning.
Oh, shit. That thing is scary.
It is scary. Now, the first sighting of this thing comes from a lumberjack woodsman type fella named Gene Shepard, who said he saw this creature while working them trees in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. in 1893. He told his story, and news of this story and him seeing this thing spread. And he said, seeing the creature retreat to a cave, he got a sponge, soaked it in some chloroform, and attached it to the end of a stick. And he went to this cave and waited for this creature to be asleep. And when he did, he said he stuck that stick in there and rendered it unconscious while it was asleep. And after he retrieved the creature, he knew he had something unique. But the description of this guy goes as follows. He has the body of an alligator. He has the head of a frog and the face of a snoutless elephant. He has dark green or black swampy mane, saber-toothed tiger-like tusks, 2 horns on his head, horns that run down its spine and tail, massive gigantic claws. It's said to be between 4 and 7 feet long, between 1,200 and 1,500 pounds, glowing red or green eyes. So this guy's truly a monster. It's a beast. You can look up images of it, and they're all the same, no matter what time area it comes from, and it's still a nasty looking thing. And to think of this thing being 7 feet long, it's said to be able to disembowel any living creature,
like a velociraptor.
Yeah, but instead of having one really cool giant hook claw, his whole hand
It's
is
got
those things.
all of the hook claws.
Yeah, and it has like 5
Nice.
digits, so he can probably grab you if you wanted to.
So he can just fuck your whole world up.
Right.
Good for him.
Well, Shepard decided that since he had something so unique, he had that bastard taxidermied, and he took it to local fairs where he charged a dime to look at it. And it's even reported that he made $500 in one day showing this thing off. And that's...
Wow. So, I mean, really do the math on that one to see how many people.
Well, yeah, exactly. I also looked up the inflation on that. That's $14,700.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, so he stuck to doing that. He took that thing all over the place, cementing its existence forever in history because there was no question. This thing was seen and reported, and he caught it. But in looking into this story, I came across a really cool documentary, which I'll talk about later. But I did some more reading, and these lumber folks were full of shit, and they were known to be full of shit.
How dare you? They were the heroes of the frontier. And you're calling them full of shit. They were just trying to warn people for what to avoid when they went into this wild wilderness. And you're calling them bullshitters? Mateo,
No,
why do you hate America?
No. Hear me out. We've talked about hoaxers before. We've talked about them plenty of times. There are tons of examples of people faking stuff for the sole purpose of fucking with people, maybe even to cause confusion or even just a good laugh. Well, nothing more truer could be said about the habits of the lumber folks. They like to tell stories. That was part of their culture. It was a form of entertainment. It was something that you did. In fact, bullshit was so commonplace, such a common pastime amongst lumberjacks, that in doing research, I actually came across a 1951 book about, quote, tall tales from the Ozarks, literally titled, "We Always Lie to Strangers." And the cover has a cartoon of 2 lumberjacks sitting on a log talking to, a city type folk dude in some, goofy shorts and shoes on. So that just goes to show you the attitude and the mentality of these people at this time. So after a while, the stories start to spread, and the Smithsonian Institute supposedly catches wind of this guy's story, and they actually sent somebody out to investigate what this guy was showing off and what he was talking about. And when he was confronted by such brass, he quickly confessed to having this thing made up, the story and this fake corpse of this creature. So eventually the Hodag was written off as a hoax, but there's a few things about the Hodag that we still have to question. Can we chalk the Hodag up to something as simple as campfire stories? And it's easy to do when you're talking about creatures from the lumberwoods, especially with creatures with names like Goofus Bird, Gumbaroo, and the
Goofus Bird.
the Gigglaboo Bird. It's
Oh yeah,
yeah,
classics.
yeah. But what do we say about the ones that seem to branch out into different realms of reality with creatures like the Hodag and the Jersey Devil? And the thing that separates them from pretty much every single creature from the Lumberwoods is that they're still being seen today. Now, what do you think about that, Mike, when it's something that we know to be a hoax?
Well, what if it's not a hoax? What if we don't see it anymore because the Lumberwoods got cleared out and they've got nowhere to go? We destroyed their habitat with our pioneering ways, and they can't go on anymore. We destroyed it. The fucking rock hanging mountain, I can't remember its name. The something rock slider, I think.
The Bolt Rock Slider?
Yeah, we took away its ability to hide because we took down all the forests. So now it's like, oh look, there's the rock slider. Avoid that. And then everyone goes around and he's like, I'm so hungry. And then we're like, kill all the buffalo. That's the real reason we killed all the buffalo when we went west. It wasn't because we're greedy bastards. It's because we were trying to starve the rock sliders so that we could continue. They were the rock slider. What was what was preventing us, or it was preventing the westward expansion. They don't tell you about that in history class, but those are facts. The rock slider almost ended Manifest Destiny in the New World. But we killed it. We killed its food supply of buffalo, and then we cut down all the woods so that we could see it from far distances. We decided to change our traveling paths to avoid its territory, and eventually it just starved to death and died.
Yeah, and that's why areas like in the Rockies are national parks, is because there's areas that are designated to have straggler rock sliders, and they can have as little as people going there.
It's a secret population. That's also a little known fact. The rock slider is the primary reason for the missing 411 cases. So be wary in national parks because they're a little smaller than their ancestors were, and it's just out of necessity now. They don't get as much nutrients, so they grow smaller. But the smaller ones makes it easier for them to hide. So no longer can they scoop up an entire covered wagon anymore, but they could sure as shit scoop up a human in their mouth, no problem.
Oh yeah. I came across a write-up about those guys when I was reading on stuff about a couple of these books that I came across. And they write about how its mouth constantly leaked this light oil, so it would help it slide down the mountain.
And it also prevents things from running away because slick ground, they can't gain traction, slipping and sliding. You know how it goes.
So some greased up giant fish lips give a little motion, you're a goner. While it's traveling like
nothing you can do.
60 miles an hour. That thing would be hideous, dude. The size of a whale. Can you imagine that?
Just sliding down the hill, mouth wide open.
Yeah, can you imagine just like visiting a mountainous area and they have like lookout posts set up and you can look through this huge binocular set that you put a quarter in and look at the side of the mountains and you just try to spot these giant things. You can see them just perched up there, sleeping.
You have to be extra quiet so that it doesn't catch you. Some asshole you're with steps on a twig, so you have to shoot him in the knee, and then everybody runs while he gets devoured. That's life on the frontier, baby.
But there's a couple other interesting things that point out to the fact that he might have seen this thing. He took 3 years, maybe, to prep to capture this thing. The sighting took place in 1893, and he captured it in 1896. Do you think that time gap could be trying to figure out a way to capture this thing?
Or figuring out a way to hoax it.
Yeah, or I mean, do you think it's going to take 3 years to build a carcass like this? Because his first encounter was reported in the newspapers. Do you think waiting 3 fucking years to reboost a hoax is going to catch on that well? I mean, do you think the fact that...
Who knows? It's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, he went back and brought back a body, basically.
Yeah, I mean, sure, it's possible. I would say unlikely, but in the same way that the Patterson film was done while they were looking for Bigfoot. So people are like, well, they were looking for Bigfoot, so of course they found it, Oh, no, people didn't want to buy it based on that alone. So you have people spending all this time preparing to bring in this murder monster, and then he does, and you'll have a lot of people like, oh, well, isn't that convenient? Well, yeah, it is, because he was, looking for it. So what kind of hunter would he be if he was not successful after looking for 3 years? Like if it existed and he was able to track it and all that. But what if it was just something that it's like still around, but we call it something else? What if this was early chupacabra?
Wow, dude. I didn't make that connection. If you look at it, it's easy to make too. Wow. Maybe.
Yeah, like the early sightings with the weird spines on its back and the claws and all that shit.
Maybe it's adapted to be in a mountainous region and it's on all fours.
Yeah. It has to it's a quadruped because it's got to contend with mountains and lumber woods. So it can climb trees as well.
There was a creature from the Lumberwoods book I was reading up on, and it said that it lives on the side of mountains, so the legs on its right side are shorter, so it can stand and sleep sideways on the sides of mountains.
That's ridiculous. And preposterous even.
Okay, so when I was looking stuff up to talk about this Hodag, I came across this pretty cool, I had to say, I love this documentary on the Hodag. And it goes into the history of the creature. It goes into the history of Shepherd. They have descendants of this guy still living in this town. And he was known to be a joker, a practical joker. They even say that he wanted to pull off a bigger practical joke. And he noticed right away the money he made off this thing and how much business it brought to the town. And they talk about how there was a debate about putting a big statue of a Hodag in front of the city hall. But so many people, even after this was exposed as a hoax, loved the Hodag and the whole story behind it, that they eventually ended up embracing it. They were talking to a police officer, and the logo for their police force has a Hodag climbing over the word police.
Oh, wow.
It's fucking awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Their patch on his shoulder for this, their precinct has a Hodag on it. Every fucking thing has a Hodag on it. There's festivals for the thing. It's very much a real part of life for them there, if it's something false or not. It's very much the same thing we see with Nessie. Real or not, people in Scotland and all over the world have embraced Nessie. And people there definitely have. But they talk about people who've seen it. And it was odd to see people be dead serious talking about seeing this thing. They had this dude who I fucking loved. It made me want to move to Wisconsin, man. He's a former mayor. But what he does now is take people on boat rides to where the Hodag like to live. And he was such a cool and goofy dude. He talks about his own encounter, and they have a little reenactment where he's on a stroll and he's just walking along and he started to smell this putrid smell.
And as I'm walking through the woods, and all of a sudden I am stopped short in my tracks, like dead in my tracks, because a smell assaulted my nose. A stink that could only be described as so strong it would drive a skunk off a gut pile. It was bad. I stopped, and here it comes walking down the pathway. And as it gets closer, I notice that its eyes were glowing green, that its nose was flaring red. And as it appeared closer and closer, all of a sudden, with cat-like agility, it sprung upon a log right in front of me. And that's when I saw the huge, huge claws so big it could rip the belly out of the biggest beast. That's when I saw the horns running down its back, ending in a fistful of those needle-sharp points at the end of its tail. And that's when I very carefully Trying not to move at all for fear of what might happen, I reached into my top pocket and I took out my iPhone, and I commenced to take as quiet a picture as I possibly could, and then without making any sudden movements, I very carefully backed away from that critter and hightailed it out of there.
And then he talks about his boat tour for a while. And he says at the very end of the documentary, they go back to him. He says, I went home and lo and behold, my phone was dead.
Alas, upon getting home, my battery was dead. While I'm searching for the charger, my cats decided to use the phone as a kickball, and they shattered it beyond belief. But I did see it. It is real. And I only had one cocktail.
So it's very much, the people that live there are still these fun-loving, storytelling people. It's ingrained into who they are there. And it was so fascinating to watch. The guy who they had on, who is a Hodag specialist, would talk to you like this, but as soon as he started talking about the Hodag, he started speaking like this. And his claws were so big, it could disembowel any beast. It's just bred into him. It was amazing to see, but they did have people swearing that they'd seen it. They talked to this girl who had to be 11 years old. She talked about how terrifying it was.
Well, it was nice and sunny out. It was around dusky, though. I got done with supper and I didn't have any homework, so I decided to go down there and sat up in my favorite tree like I do any other time. And I saw him. He was black, very black, lots of spikes going. He had 2 on his head and then at least 15 going down to his back and quite a few on his tail. The claws were, I don't know, probably about that big on each paw. He had about 3 of them and then one on his back there. It was scary.
They talked to this guy who's a wildlife artist. And when you look up the Hodag and you go to Google and click images, you're going to see this guy's artwork. And he didn't have not one encounter with it. He had 2. And on the second encounter, he saw a group of them.
10 years ago, I was snowshoeing. And in the evening, I saw a group of Hodags, not close, but there's a lot of dead trees, and I was up on a hill, so I was just like, unbelievable, because I'd heard stories about the Hodag, but people would just talk about one, but here there's a group of them.
But in this documentary, they just present this fun-loving town to where, the high school, or they're called the Hodags. Everything about this town is Hodag, how much they love it. We know it's fake, but then we have these sincere encounters with this thing.
And as a little girl, I'll tell you, I seen them.
We do on occasion receive complaints, concerned citizens calling in about a mysterious creature.
What do you think that could be?
I don't know, man. It's one of these weird creatures that just kind of pop up that don't really have an explanation. Like you can't really compare it to anything. And you'll always get, because it's a weird creature that's a quadruped, you'll get people that are just saying it's a regular animal with really bad mange. And those aren't spines on their back. Those are like calluses or, whatever the buildup is, the crusty buildup from having mange. And they look all weird because their skin's all dry and flaky and their claws are sticking out and their teeth are sticking out. And they look monstrous, but it's just a coyote or a bear. But I don't know. I when you get multiple sightings over generations or over decades, to me, it makes it seem more credible. But then again, the longer that you have these sightings of these weird things, where you don't have any evidence or anything to really justify the fact that people are still seeing it, it makes me think that it's just it maybe isn't a flesh and blood thing, or maybe not something that belongs here. Like maybe it's part of some sort of temporal overlap or something, like with like either a past period in time overlapping with our current period, or another reality overlapping with ours, just some weird like synchronistic event where our universes line up for the briefest of time, and during that time this thing comes through, and maybe it's like this roving portal that opens up, and that's why certain things come through in certain places. I don't fucking know. But when you have weird shit like that, it makes me think that there's something, I hesitate to say supernatural, but otherworldly maybe. I don't know. Cuz I feel like by saying supernatural or otherworldly, it makes it seem
alien or ghost,
like magical. Yeah, exactly. And because like, what if it's just something we don't understand, but it's part of like the natural order of the universe. Like these things just happen, and it's weird to us because we can't explain it and we don't have evidence to support it, and it's all hearsay, and there's, but what if it's just natural? Same with the UFO phenomena. What if that's just something that exists in nature and we just don't understand it? So we make up all these theories trying to grasp what's going on. But it's just a part of nature that we don't understand. And just like our ancestors didn't have a way to explain what lightning was. If you can't explain it, it just seems like this weird magical thing that happens.
Right.
So that's my windbag answer to your question.
Yeah, I mean, they talk to people that live there, and there's people who will say straight faced that, oh yeah, they're real, they're here. And even if a shepherd saw the commerce that having that thing brought to them, and him and the town, him and the area, that's kind of in modern times, think about somebody trying to do that now. That's kind of a thin line to teeter on, right? I mean, it's come check out the dead Hodag, or come check out Hodagville, or where this thing is, right next to, there's a 7-foot fucking man-eating beasts that run around here. Not one of them, but groups of them. That's going to be hard to maintain.
Yeah. That's why it seems more likely that they'd be like phasing in and out.
Well, they did talk about in one case where how they're known to have hyper sense of smell, a very, very good sense of smell, and they'll smell you before you smell their funk, and they'll take off. And it's kind of it makes sense.
Like a Bigfoot sort of thing?
Yeah, so I don't know if that's like a built-in excuse as to why you'll never run into it, because it'll know you're there before you notice it and it takes off. But that kind of makes sense with almost all forest animals.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you make of somebody as young as 10 or 11 saying that they've seen one of these things?
To me, I guess I would have to know what the kid's background was. Because to me, if a kid knows their shit and they seem to be telling the truth about it, that's one thing. But if it's a kid who doesn't know anything, who just saw some random thing in the woods and is like, oh my God, it's a Hodag. I don't know. I don't know if I buy it. But I mean, the same could be said about anybody.
Right.
If I don't know them, there's no, no reason for me to believe what they're saying.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of that Slender Man thing to it. Something we know that came from nothing that's genuine anyway. And then people report seeing it. And I don't want to say the word hysteria. I don't think that's a type of hysteria. I think that's probably more of a mental health issue on a personal level, maybe.
And you can't discount like the effect that a scary story has on people either. If someone heard this scary story and then they saw something that they couldn't explain readily, they might be quick to be like, no, It was the Hodag.
Plus, I'm not going to put past any entity that's fucking with somebody, making itself appear as something that that person's scared of. If these particular people who are into Slenderman, and I don't even mean to say into Slenderman, I don't mean these people have posters of Slendy hanging in their bedroom walls. I'm sure everybody listening's heard of Slenderman. It's something you come across when you look into weird stuff like this. It's something that wasn't real. It just strikes me as bizarre.
Yeah, I don't know. But in my mind, every one of the Lumberwoods creatures is real. And they're all something to be feared and respected, damn it.
I desperately want them to be real. I mean, what do you think about the Jersey Devil being considered one of these creatures from the Lumberwoods? I mean, I never put that together. I remember reading the book and going, the Jersey Devil's in there, and not really making the connection that it's separated itself from what they call fearsome critters. There's a different book called Fearsome Critters, and it seems to be in its own bracket of cryptozoology. These woodland creatures that are based on fable and stories. But what do you think about, like, why has the Hodag and the Jersey Devil separated themselves? Do you think it's just because continued sightings, or people just latching onto these things?
Yeah, it's really weird because the Jersey Devil has really dwindled over the years, but it's something that still kind of pops up from time to time. But it's also a household name, and I think that's in part due to the fact that there's a hockey team. But the story seems to still stick, and people from the Pine Barrens still claim that it's out there. You know, there's certain people, and I don't know, man. I don't know why certain ones stick and other ones just kind of fade away. And in the case of the Hodag, I think it's because it's like this monstrous thing, but it could potentially be like just like a catch-all sort of thing, kind of like Chupacabra has become. The Jersey Devil, though, is a weird one because that's really localized. It's not like it's even statewide in New Jersey. You know, it's in the Pine Barrens specifically. So it's not like you're seeing these sightings in other areas of the world. It's just this place where you're seeing this weird flying horse monster. It's so bizarre.
Very true. The Jersey Devil, it doesn't have any come visit our area feel to it. It's this lady gave birth to a demon and immediately flew away from her after she birthed it.
Yeah. She cursed it and it's like, fuck you, I got too many kids. You go to hell. And he's like, I am hell.
Kicked open the shutter and fucking
he's like, fuck you, I will haunt the world forever. But really just these woods.
Oh, we're doing a show. Well, yeah, the Jersey Devil's a Lumberwoods creature. Here we go, Jersey Devil song, man. You got to do that voice though.
Oh my god. I am the Jersey Devil. I am hell.
That'll be the song title, I Am Hell.
Rob Zombie already has a song called I Am Hell.
I'm sure he does.
Of course he does. He's fucking Rob Zombie.
There was a story that they had about this dude named Shorty. You got to forgive me. I rewrote my notes 1,000 times. I left out his last name, but he was a firefighter who was taking a train, and it made a stop in a nearby town called Roosevelt. And they had to take a prolonged stop. So he got out and started walking down the tracks to have a cigarette or whatever. And they say they found him in two pieces with no other trains had come in or anything like that. And they said they had to bury him in two separate boxes even.
Wow. They couldn't pack him into one box?
I don't know. There goes that fable stuff. I mean, the guy even cracked the joke of they wouldn't open the top part, but the bottom half was open casket, and they made sure he had brand new shoes on.
Huh.
Yeah. It's everybody that talked that wasn't just a regular person. Anybody who, like the ex-mayor dude was great. The expert was great. They have some other people from the local government, you know, but you can just tell that they love storytelling and it's bred into the people of the area. And they utilize those telling of tales as entertainment and with a type of endearment, almost like a holiday tradition even. After watching that documentary and getting to see some locals talk about it, I almost don't care if the Lumberwoods creatures are real. I still fucking love them. I still want a fucking Hodag t-shirt from every fucking shop in that town.
I want a Hodag action figure.
Fuck yeah, with shooting back quills.
Oh yeah, definitely. Maybe we'll have to do a Hodag sticker for the patrons on Patreon.
Ooh.
Oh guys, it's that time of the show again for me to plug our Patreon account. So go to Patreon, get stickers and prints and other things. I don't know if it's up yet, but we just recorded an episode about Polybius. So if you're into weird video game conspiracy theories from the 80s, then, no better time than the present to become a patron. So go join, get this stuff, and listen to the stuff. Okay, back to your regularly scheduled Whatcast.
Yeah. I showed Mike the next month's prints, which came out pretty cool.
Yeah, they came out very cool.
I don't post pictures of them. Maybe I should. Maybe I shouldn't be.
You should post some teasers for the non-patrons so that they know what they're missing, and they're going to be like, oh, damn, that's some sweet shit. And we'll say, yeah, it is. And it could be your sweet shit.
All right, I'll do it.
Yes, do it.
Just for shits and giggles, man. Just because of all the alien disclosure. And I hate to use the term disclosure in reference to what I'm asking you, because I kind of like to take a step back, take the government out of it, and just watch what these UFOs have been doing. And they've been making themselves more visible, apparently more visible. There's no denying that they're easier to see. There's more of them. It's cool that the government's now witnessing them and all that stuff, but they're there. And I don't know. Maybe it's the term unveiling is what I want to use, just as a phenomenon. Maybe as you were talking about. Do you think we'll ever get some unveiling when it comes to cryptids like this? Do you think we'll ever, I don't know, have some underdeveloped area of some abandoned town be demolished for, putting up new townhouses and then finding some weird cavern and some weird bones in there that we can't explain?
No, but I would love it. I would love it so much. Like they find this weird fucking underground thing that's been sealed off, but only the spooky cryptid has been able to get in and out, and we break it, and it's the breeding ground of the chupacabra, and the first people in get swarmed and sucked dry, while the rest of the people are trying to shoot their way out, and they're getting taken out one by one. And it's like the Phil Schneider thing, except instead of 9-foot tall gray aliens, it's just hordes upon hordes of chupacabras and hodags.
I definitely wholeheartedly believe if something like that was going on, if there was this part of some backwoods town that where people were getting ripped to pieces, and they keep finding disemboweled people that have just been smashed and torn apart, and they can't credit it to any local wildlife or anything like that, I think something like that would definitely be hushed up real quick. I don't think that anything like that would get out at all.
Why do you think they'd cover it up?
I think that the UFO report that came out and what the government's saying now about UFOs kind of just flew over everybody's head. I mean, there's memes about how people just didn't really care about what they're saying. I still don't think people really understand and grasp what they're saying and what magnitude of the things that they are saying. But I think that if that's the reaction of a lot of people, that I used to think that people wouldn't be able to handle that type of information, and now it's been proven that they don't give a shit. I think that if there's some type of fucking unknown beast somewhere, that people would flip the fuck out. When there is cases of shit like this happening, there's plenty of times where half the town just loaded up their shotguns and jumped in their trucks and started shooting into the woods. I mean, there's tons of angles you can look at it to where it would just be havoc. It would be chaos. I mean, seriously, let's just do it. Skinwalker Ranch, there's been 6 video cameras that have captured a 9.5-foot tall werewolf running around there. And the military.
What? Really?
No, let's just say that's the case.
Oh, okay. I'm like, what? How did I miss the fucking werewolf?
Let's just say that they've had the military there for a week looking for this thing. They can't do anything. Locals start showing up. People start going there to camp out and hunt for the werewolf. There's going to be a group of people that want to go there to hump it. There's going to be a group of people that want to go there to worship it. That would just be fucking pandemonium in that area. I think it would be far more disruptive than coming out and saying there's fucking aliens.
I don't know. I think they could lump it all together. Be like, it's a fucking alien. And you're like, no, that's a werewolf. You ever see an alien? No. Well, that's a goddamn alien.
I just think that if we're talking about aliens, people are going to go, yeah, the people from outer space or living things in outer space, sure, that's believable. But to come across or to... I mean, just like I'm saying,
vampires.
Yeah,
they're going to be from outer space.
But to say there's something like that goes against everything, fossil findings. I mean, something that's definitely not supposed to be here is going to be much more difficult to accept. Aliens, yeah, that's likely. Hodags, I don't know. That would be out there.
Or would it?
It would be. Just think back to like hearing old reports and news broadcasts of like David Berkowitz running around shooting people. And them not being able to catch him for months, and they just had to live with this somewhat super predator roaming around, killing people. They're like, oh shit! Did you hear another couple got shot in the head? God damn, that's crazy. Imagine that with just like, yeah, this another fucking person working around the woods. They just found like 6 pounds of skin. That's all, and it's just something that's going on.
Just the thought of 6 pounds of skin is so gross.
Hodags hate skin. They eat everything else.
Yeah, in the next disclosure announcement, we're gonna start getting confirmation that cryptids are the ones behind the whole thing. There's goblins flying TikToks. Again, I fucking did the TikTok. Goblins and Tic Tacs. Fucking we got Hodags surfing on silver surfboards in space, and Bigfoot riding fireballs while waving a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
You'd think that Bigfoot would not want to ride a fireball because they've got all that hair, but little known fact, Bigfoots are fireproof.
That's why they live so long.
Completely fireproof. And you know what the bullshit is? Whenever there's those forest fires in California, Bigfoot could stop those. They choose not to.
Yeah, they just literally stand in one spot until it passes.
Mm-hmm. They choose not to. So keep that in mind. That's the type of fuckers you're dealing with.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.